Guitar tips, guitar tips, just the tips, just for you, guitar tips. Hello and welcome to Guitar Tips. It's March, happy March, happy almost springtime. My name is Adam Levy. This is Guitar Tips. This is my weekly video blog series. I post a new tip here each and every Friday. Just little tidbits, little things to chew on while you're practicing or performing or, I don't know, riding the subway. Wherever you happen to be, if guitar is on your mind, I hope that you will find Guitar Tips to be helpful. Guitar Tips, as always, at least in recent times, Guitar Tips is sponsored by Martin Guitar Strings. I'm very happy to say that. Those are the strings that I use on this particular guitar. Actually, on both of my steel string guitars, I use what Martin calls their retro series strings in a light gauge with a 12 on top. They sound good. They sound like guitar strings. Maybe that's funny to say, but some guitar strings are, at least to my ears, a little bit unnatural sounding. It's like somebody messed with the equalizer or something. So frequencies pop out that you don't necessarily want, and frequencies that you really do want seem to be missing. But I don't find that with these strings. They're just even and rich, and that's what I like about them. So thank you, Martin Guitar Strings, especially Martin Retro Strings. Thank you so much. This week's guitar tip, on with the tips, on with the tips. This week's guitar tip actually comes from a regular guitar tip viewer, a guy in the UK named Dave Callos. Hope I'm saying that right, Dave. Dave asked, in jazz, what is backcycling? And is it too far for intermediate players? So I'll answer the second part first. No, it is not too far for intermediate players. So that's the answer to that. And then the answer to the front part, what is backcycling? This week's guitar tip, what is backcycling? What is backcycling? Now, as you would have noticed if you heard me read Dave's question, this is a jazz. It is a harmonic technique that's often used in jazz. But even if you're not a jazz-oriented player, I hope that you'll find this tip helpful. So, to understand what backcycling is, we need to just understand a really basic aspect of functional harmony, which is the relationship between the 5 and the 1. So if we're in the key of C, for example, the 5 chord, that's the chord built off the 5th degree, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's G. It's the chord built off of the G, so that's usually G7. If I've lost you already, let me just back up a little bit. This may be review for some of you. This may be new for some of you, but I'll try and explain it as clearly as I can. In functional harmony, we build triads. We'll start with triads. We can build a 3-note chord. That's what a triad is, off of each note in the scale. So off of the 1st degree, if we're in C, we can build a major triad. And off of the 2nd degree, in this case D, we can build a minor triad. And off of the 3rd degree, we also have a minor triad. So we've got C major, D minor, E minor, F major, that's the 4th degree. 5th degree is G major, you can play that here, you can play it here. Then you've got A minor, then you've got B diminished, and you've got C. If you're still lost, what can I do to make this a little more clear? Well, as if you were just to sit at the piano and I don't know if you can visualize a piano, but if you can, if you just locked your fingers in a grip of every other note, and you started on C, you'd have, if you had 3 fingers going, you'd play C, E, G. And if you just stayed on the white keys, that would keep you in the key of C major. And just by virtue of the quirkiness of how major scales are constructed, what we don't get is C major, D major, E major, F major. We get different chord qualities as we go along, just because the scale is not symmetrical. So we wind up with C, D minor, E minor, F, G, and I'm going to jump down here because I've run out of frets, A minor, B diminished, and C. So we need to know that much before we can talk about back cycling. And we name these with Roman numerals. So C is the 1 chord, D minor is the 2 chord, E minor is the 3 chord, F is the 4 chord. I'm going to switch inversions here. G major, G is the 5 chord, A minor is the 6 chord, B diminished is the 7 chord, and C again, and we're back home. But commonly, the 5 chord, we make a 4-part chord out of it. So we take, instead of just the triad of the 5 chord G, very commonly we put the 7th on that chord. So this is a G7 chord. I'm playing F, B, D, G. There's other ways you could play it. You could play this. That's a G7 chord. I don't know if you can see my right hand, but I'm just on the first 4 strings here. So that's G7, that's G7, that's G7. I don't know if you can see that. It looks kind of like a D7 chord, but moved up. And there's another one here. These are fret numbers 9, 10, 8, 10. And then we're back home. We've got that same inversion we had down here. So all of those tend to want to resolve to the 1. That's G7 to C, G7 to C, G7 to C, G7. We can go here. I'm not too worried about perfect voice leading right now. I'm just trying to give you the sense of that. A neat exercise that's fun to play if you want to work on just your basic 5-1 dominant kind of sounds, dominant to major triad. This is an exercise I learned from Peter Butterfield when I was at music school at Dick Grove. You can take an A triad. Now I'm on the 2nd string set, so just 2, 3, 4, and I play an A triad. That's the 2nd inversion. Then I add this G and I attack it with my thumb. Now it becomes A7 and I resolve to D. That's a 1st inversion D triad. Then I add my pinky to make it a D7. And then G, root position, add your pinky to make G7. So if you do that all together without all the talking, it sounds like this. And once you're here on this C triad, same shapes repeat. So C, C7, F, F7, B, B flat 7, E flat, A flat. I'm going to start again down low, or let's just start on G. Again, this is a 12-fret guitar, so if I move up the neck, I run out of frets pretty quickly. But this is G, G7, C, F, B flat, if you were following along in your head, I'm on E. Okay, so that's kind of a neat exercise just to practice that 5-1 resolution. Triad, dominant, new triad up a 4th. So we're going around the circle: A, D, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, etc. It goes all the way around the chromatic circle. So that's the basic thing. Now all that back cycling is compounding that. So if we'll take a really simple song, okay? Let's take Happy Birthday. Okay, I'll play it in G. So that's just 1 to 5. G, D7, that's the 5. So we'll just stop right there. So instead of just going 1, 5, we could insert a new chord that's the 5 of 5. So before we go to the D7, we could play A7. A7 is the fifth, A is the fifth degree of a D scale. A is the fifth degree of a D scale. We can make a dominant chord off of that, and that's going to lead our ears to the D or D7. A7 could lead us to D or to D7 or to D minor. Any of those are fine. In this case, the song Happy Birthday, we go to D7. So watch how I put an A7 chord in there. So that was A7, D7. I didn't like it there as much, so we'll just go back typical 5/1. But where I did like it was going to the D7. I'm just doing the same shapes but on a different string set here. So this is A7, D7. Back home. So let's keep going. So let's see what we can do there. If we want to go 3 chords, we're eventually going to C. We need to look ahead to where we're going. So we want to get to C, and if we're going around the circle, it would be da 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 1 2 da 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 da. So A D G C. We're going. Remember, the root motion is going to be around the circle of fourths. So let's see. Da, 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 da. So see if this works. I'm going to play some kind of A chord with D, just because that's the melody. So I'm just thinking, how can I harmonize these? Well, let's see. If this is A7 with D on top, it's going to be some kind of A7 sus, because D is the 4th degree. So we could play maybe this. And then we go, that's an A chord. Now we need a D chord. Maybe I'll make another D sus chord. The melody here is B, which is you could say the 6th or the 13th of D. And then I'll make this G7 a sus. So we'll just get sus qualities all the way through. Sounds like a Steely Dan song all of a sudden. And then maybe I'd go to A minor there just for fun. That has nothing to do with back cycling. But if you're on C major, as we are, you can always go to A minor, which is the relative minor and an easy substitution. Now here comes the last part. If we want 4 chords here, we're going to go E, A, let's see, we have to back cycle to G. So we want, da, 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 da. So we're going to go from B7, B7, E7, A7, like that. Da, do that a little more slowly. So what I'm thinking about is the melody. So that's not going to change. And I'm thinking about the root motion. So I want to go da, 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 da. So that melody makes this a B7 flat 9, E7, A7, so again, excuse me, B7, E7, A7, with the G in the melody, D7, I'm making this sus with A in the melody, and then back home. So that's the bare bones essence of what back cycling is. You have the bass motion almost always moving in fourths, generally dominant chords. You can also try mixing in other types of chords, but typically you have this kind of motion where if they're all dominant, that's I think what most people mean in jazz when they talk about back cycling, moving through dominant chords. Somebody may disagree. There may be another way to look at back cycling, but that's what I think of. So in jazz, for another example is I've got rhythm. Let's say we're in the key of B flat. So I'm going to just skip ahead for the sake of time. It's in B flat. The bridge is 8 bars long. We want to get back to B flat at the end of it. So the way that most people play the bridge to I Got Rhythm is you start on D7, and you might go, wow, D7, that's pretty far away from the home bass key, the B flat. But look at it, 2 bars of D7, 2 bars of G7, 2 bars of C7, 2 bars of F7. We've got that same fourths bass motion, D, G, C, F, and all dominant. So D7, G7, C7, F7, and then we're back home where we started on the B flat. So you could look at that as an example of back cycling. It usually involves looking forward to where you want to go and just kind of pulling backwards and stringing dominant chords together in a circle of fourths root motion to create some harmonic interest. Now, I'll add one more twist, which is that quite often in back cycling, jazz musicians will use tritone substitution. That could be the topic of an entire other guitar tip, but I'll just say for our purposes today that tritone substitution means swapping one dominant chord for another whose root is a tritone or 3 whole steps or a flat 5. Those are all 3 ways of saying the same thing, apart. So for C7, for example, we could substitute F sharp 7. That's a tritone apart or a flatted 5th apart or 3 whole steps apart. And the reason that it works in a nutshell is that C7, I'm playing C, E, B flat, and F sharp or G flat dominant here, shares these 2 notes in common. All that's changing is the bass. F sharp 7, C7. So because of that, sometimes in back cycling, instead of going back to Happy Birthday, instead of going B7, E7, A7, D, G, you could try substituting. I'm going to now do the tritone substitute of all those. So instead of going B, E, A, D, G, I'm going to go F, B flat, E flat, A flat, G. So F is a sub for B, B flat is a sub for E, etc. So check this out. Pretty far out. In the case of that melody, I don't know that that's going to be the greatest thing. The F is kind of neat. So you could mix and match. So you could go F, E7. So you try this, F, E, E flat, D, G. So instead of going F, B flat, E flat, A flat, or B, E, A, D, I'm going to go F, E, E flat, D, G. And that's kind of neat. You get this chromatic movement and back home. So that could be E, E flat, D, G. So one more time. A7, D7. F, E flat, D, G. So that, in a nutshell, is back cycling. There's lots more you could do to explore that, but that's kind of the basic idea. So, what is back cycling? Now you know. Is it too far advanced for intermediate players? I don't think so. Thanks, Dave Callos, for writing in. Thank you for tuning in. And that's it. For Guitar Tips, I am Adam Levy. Stay tuned and take good care.